It's 5:15, if you can tell. Alright, so yeah, that's 5:12, but it's 5:15. So I'm getting ready to go to work, and I'm going to make a video. And I want to be very clear that this video is not to say that Christmas... This is not to say, like, why. This is not to prove that Christ is a fake Messiah, that there's many Messiahs that came before him. This is not to prove that Christmas is or isn't originally pagan or anything like that. It's not to do any of those things. Those things might be proven or pointed out, but it's not to do any of those things. It's to simply show everybody that if you're a magical practitioner, witch, ceremonial magician, heathen, fucking Norse dude, shaman, Luciferian, satanic, whatever you want to call it, it might be harder if you're really opposed to Christ and Christianity to want to celebrate Christmas, or Xmas, rather say Xmas, but I've been saying for the last little bit that the Bible has stolen most of its stories from older traditions, and I'm going to play some content here before I get started on what I want to teach. 3 videos from Birch. Now, one is the entire video, but it's 4 minutes long. It's a shout out to Jesus. The second one is about Samhain. I have only, recorded 3 minutes out of that, like 20-minute video. And then the last one is a 20-minute video, which is straight up about Xmas, and why he celebrates Xmas, and why he talks about Druidic songs, and why it's funny, and what they actually mean, and the translations, and a whole bunch of reasons why celebrating Christmas is more pagan than anything else. And you can see this. There's actually Christian videos about this, explaining how Christmas is bad holiday. And this is where I think a lot of the Christianity is satanic stuff comes from, because our religion is satanic, apparently. Being spiritual and trying to do for self instead of begging God for everything is satanic, I guess. But anyways, the point I'm trying to say is my video is not about making fun of Christianity, although it might come off as that. It's not about saying that I'm better than them or anything. If anything, it's about how they preserved paganism within Christianity a little bit, even though they're preaching maybe a different message. So I just wanted to say that first, and then I'm going to let Birch do a lot of the talking right now, and then I'm going to come on when I start driving on the road to work, which is I'm leaving in about 10 minutes. I'll come back on and tell you my point of view, and hopefully I'll be more awakened. I can talk a little better by then. Alright, see you on the other side.
It's a boy. On this, the day of your alleged birth, Jesus, I'd like to put a shout out to you. I know we give you a hard time sometimes, as pagans. Some of us are bitter. Past has been rough on us, but I'll give a shout out to you. Whoever the hell you are, whenever the hell you were born, it's obvious you're one of us, not one of them. And although I work well with people of all religions, it's the zealots of any religion that fuck everything up and piss me off. And it's the people that came along and tried to claim you as their exclusive sole property. That distorts your simple message. Love each other, work great miracles. It seems obvious to me that you were trying to teach us how to do magic, rather than beg our Father for magic. As the church came along and distorted your message into being a whiny, kneeling, pleading, type of thing rather than an embracing the power that God has given you kind of thing. Problem I have with any of the zealots from any of the religions, be it Jew, Christian, Jew, Muslim, doesn't matter, you people, you the ones fucking it up for all of us. It's the problem that you try and claim God as your exclusive property. Try and put God in a box, wrap it up, and make him just yours. Him, her, all that is, everything that is, be just the exclusive property of your religion. And I'm sorry, you can have that God. That God that can be kept in a box. It's not my God. Not even God worthy of worship. If it can be kept in your box. If you, the creation, can put your creator in a box, a narrow box, a description, a definition, lock him away as your exclusive property. I don't know what that God's weak in comparison to all that is, the entire universe, everything that exists. The God of the pagans has to have many faces just to try and describe how huge it is. So Jesus, I know it isn't your fault, and I know you were just one of many prophets. Your people, though, some of your people really pissed me off. That happy alleged birthday, zombie Jesus. May you die and rise from the grave and bring us presents, Easter eggs, something, God. I'm confused about all that, but your message and the fact that they brought you frankincense and myrrh and gold, I think was really cool. I think what they're trying to say there, Jesus, you one of us, not one of them. Matter of fact, they didn't even have them yet. They had us. They didn't have them yet. So you're obviously one of us. I'm sorry that they tried to make you one of them and made a very ugly message out of your teachings. But happy fucking birthday, dude. It's so bad by the Catholics, but what my clear vision has been able to remind people is that although the Catholic Church came along and tried to do away with us, kill us all, the Catholic Church was nice enough to provide a convenient place for paganism to survive, hidden all around the world. They provided a place to hide while they were killing us. And so we have the pure strains of paganism all over the world. They look very much like Catholicism, just really heavy on the saints and the statues and the trinkets and the candles and like in the strega, the olive oil. They're working way more with the angels than ever calling upon Jesus, doing a hell of a lot of Hail Marys. People were able to hide within the Catholic Church while being persecuted. So at some point, our people just kind of hid right under their noses, and it seemed to happen all over the place. You could see it really heavy in Ireland, see it really heavy in Italy, pretty much any place that the Catholic Church had a seat. There's paganism that survived. Several strains of South American paganism. Like Santeria, very, very pagan Catholicism. It's hard to say that too many times fast. So thank you, Catholics, and thank you also for making your own version of the holiday just to keep it alive. They have All Saints Day. They're only going to remember the dead saints, I guess. But whatever. They're still they're mimicking us, and they don't really remember that they're doing that anymore. This one I always like to remind people about, because some witches are really hardcore about Well, about a lot of things. But this time of year, I know several witches that will not take their kids trick-or-treating, or will not let their kids go trick-or-treating, so they don't want to dumb down the holiday for the kids, or they don't want to take away any of the sacredness of a holiday for the kids. And I understand that, but look at it this way. Our ancestors were devious in their ability to not be erased from the face of the planet, even though people were trying really hard to do that, trying to make them disappear. Like the Druids. The Druids were classic in weaving themselves into the fabric of society so it could never be removed. You can't sing old songs, old nursery rhymes, or fairy tales without covertly teaching your children Druidic lore. And that's how they made themselves never, ever, ever go away. These are the remnants of the old things, and they're so partially intact that I think it's a great thing, because you've got Christians and well, not all of them. They won't let their kids participate in the devil's holiday. They got these people of all these faiths to this day enacting a very modernized version of a pagan practice. Old is the dirt, and I say, that's beautiful. I love the fact I can hear our ancestors snickering in their graves. They thought they killed us. They thought they removed us from the face of the planet. Oh, how stupid. They didn't remove anything. They adopted all the policies, all the practices of the old religions to the point where they don't even know it. The Catholic Church is where to learn some really serious, deep, old paganism. They were nice enough to steal all our books, not burn them, keep them, rather than some other religions. And at any rate, I wanted to throw that out. So remember the dumb supper this Samhain. See, I messed myself up saying Halloween. I only said that so you'd understand the trick-or-treat part, but now it's screwing with me. So Samhain, remember your dumb supper, and remember your ancestors, and
All right, kids. See that? So, today's video. What about Christmas? I got kids, and I've been a witch my whole life. Way before I had kids. What are you gonna do? Not have Christmas? You tell your kids, oh, we don't celebrate Christmas. Oh yeah, this will be really popular. Your kid's gonna really want to follow your footsteps after that one, right? Well, so we witches, we tend to celebrate solstice, the winter solstice. Winter solstice is like the new moon of sun, the start of the year, the solar year. The summer solstice is like the full moon of the sun. Definitely different magics to do for that kind of thing. But as our access to information increases, we find out things that I didn't exactly know early on. There's a really cool film called Zeitgeist floating around on the internet, which explains this kind of thing really well. They do suffer a little bit in their ancient Egyptian scholarship. They mess up some of the old Egyptian things. But other than that, a great movie. Zeitgeist, Zeightgist, something like that. Search for it, you'll find it. There's probably like 4 or 5 different versions of it. But the first one's really fascinating. It's 2 parts. The second part's 9/11 conspiracy stuff. If you're into that, I'm sure I've mentioned the video before. I know I mentioned it to my students, but kind of film you can show your average clueless Christian, and unless they just don't want to get it, they get it. They lay it out in these bullet points. It's pretty hard to miss. So, really important thing we learned there. So we know Christmas was totally stolen from the pagans, like all the holidays. Um, there are even Christian factions that do not celebrate the holidays because they recognize that the holidays, in fact, are pagan and are based on pagan seasonal holidays. Everything in Christmas is pagan. The tree, you're bringing a tree in your house, there's that fucking pagan. Uh, there's one I always loved, and now I am not a linguistic scholar of world languages, but I was told by somebody that is that there are several Gaelic dialects in ancient Ireland, one used by the Bardic sect of the Druids. I am told, I do not know if this is true, but it fascinates me nonetheless, that in that language, the word fa meant hail, and the word la meant sun. And there was a chant that they used to do. It was fa la la, fa la la, fa la 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 ti day, which roughly translates to hail the sun, hail the sun, hail the early sun. Now, to put that back into context with one of the most sung Christmas carols of them all, Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly, uh, holly being a druid symbol, and being that solstice time is the time that the Holly King defeats the Oak King and reigns until summer. We can see where that came from. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. Fa la la, la la la, la la la. Hail the sun, hail the sun, hail the sun, sun, sun. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Clearly, we are the jolly religion and not our adversaries there. We celebrate, we do not celebrate. Uh, Ireland is where the wake comes from. It's a celebratory death ritual where you get really drunk and party rather than mourn. Let's see, to the season to be jolly. Don we now our gay apparel. The winter solstice was the night that the Druids changed from their green robes to their white robes, their gay apparel. Sing, oh, fa la 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 la, sun, hail the sun, hail the sun. Sing the ancient Yuletide carol, which we know is the ancient name for a holiday. There is a second verse that hardly anybody ever sings, but I have looked at it, and it's also very druidic. And if that thing that my friend told me is true, that's fucking funny. That's hilarious. That means the Druids, who were allegedly conquered by by the Romans, by the Christian Romans, who were allegedly conquered, are having their songs sung to this day by people who were their adversaries. St. Patrick went to Ireland to do away with the Druids and several other pagan sects there. And that's just one thing. That's not even where I was going to go with the zeitgeist thing. The zeitgeist thing is what we learned very specifically on the winter solstice, which tends to be December 21st. But in reality, I think a witch should know. A witch is not just a folk magician. A witch needs to know why, where, when, who, how, what. Needs to know the ins and outs of everything. So we need to know, as witches, the winter solstice happens at the moment that the sun enters Capricorn. And that not always on the 21st. It tends to be a little, I think it's usually the 21st to actually it's from the 20th to the 22nd. I think that's where solstice can fall in. But most times in my life, it has been on the 21st. But traditionally, on December 21st, the sun in the northern hemisphere, where a lot of us, the descendants of the people who stole this land here in America, came from the northern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, on the winter solstice, the sun reaches its lowest point. It dips below the horizon and does not reappear for 3 days. Now, the ancients saw the sun as God, and the belief surrounding that was that on the winter solstice, God died. God died, and 3 days later rises from the grave. So even that they stole from the pagans too. The entire Jesus mythos, and we know that the Jesus mythos was attached to the old pagan mythos by a pope and at the Council of Nicaea to give legitimacy to the story of Jesus. But the story, and especially if you watch Zeitgeist, the entire story had been told about every major god from the dawn of time, down to the traveling around with 12 apostles, working miracles, even turning water into wine. Every piece of that was somebody else before that. And matter of fact, the entire story was Moses' story before it was Jesus' story. But then they go back, and all the way back to like Mithras, and I think they even go back to ancient Samaria, and the same thing. There's a main god associated with the sun, dies at the winter solstice, rises 3 days later. And where does that bring us? It brings us with the knowledge of knowing that they stole Christmas from us. When we celebrate Christmas, or when we're forced to celebrate Christmas with our Christian parents, we can be snickering under our breath, especially if they break out a Yule log or something, which unfortunately is sometimes a log of cheese. I've seen a log of cheese that's called a Yule log. So the pagan beliefs always exist. They're just quite oftentimes really bastardized and plasticized. But where does that bring us then? So if we're pagans, we're witches, whatever you want to call yourself, but you're celebrating these seasonal holidays. And we just celebrate the winter solstice. We're just celebrating God's death. Now, most of the high holidays, and the solstice is not one of the high holidays, but most of the high holidays in paganism were twofold. Like there's Samhain and the Day of the Dead the next day. There's Beltane Eve and Beltane. Very different holidays that go well together. They're twofold, two parts to all the main holidays. So I am advocating to help you through this shit, deal with this stuff every year. We should celebrate both. Shouldn't we celebrate the death of God and then the birth of God? Because in our spiritual and religious beliefs, death is but a doorway to new life. We believe that. That's why we believe in reincarnation. If we're going to reincarnate, aren't the gods going to reincarnate too? As above, so below. As the universe, so the soul. So, you tell everybody that I told you. Uncle Birch is advocating that you celebrate both the winter solstice and Xmas. I will not say Christmas. Don't believe it. No reason to believe it. I am not one of those increasingly dominating types of Americans that cannot live with facts. And what we have is really no facts about Jesus. We have a lot of facts against the Jesus mythos. We have a lot of facts against everything that the church ever said, and really no facts to support them, except in the fact that everything in their book was stolen from somebody else. Entire Bible, all the stories in the Bible were told by cultures before the Bible, and before that, and before that, and before that, and before that. The Christians just, maybe it was the Jews. Jews took them and made it their book, and then the Christians continued that idea. And maybe that was not the original idea. Maybe these people were like the bards and just cataloging history, and it somehow became a separate sect, claiming ownership and lineage to those stories, to those characters, even though the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews all have the same people in their books doing pretty much the same thing. Yet they fight and they disagree, and most of the world's wars have been fought through these three main factions that basically are reading the same book. Certain variations, there's definitely a disagreement about Jesus. Only the Christians hold the belief in Jesus. They do. The Jews don't hold that. The Muslims don't hold that. They all have their own messiahs, their own prophets. The Jews' messiah didn't come yet. The Muslims was Muhammad. They're all the same book because these are ancient tales from ancient cultures that came way before, and none of these people actually own them. So I'm saying you should celebrate both. I'm going to celebrate both. Got to celebrate both. Like I said, I got a kid. Like, oh no, we don't celebrate Christmas. I remember the first couple of years of my daughter's life, we were too busy with Samhain to get any trick-or-treating done. It's not going to make our beliefs very popular amongst the kids. They're not going to grow up and want to do that, those things to their kids. Yeah, exactly. So basically, that's what I'm saying. The sun dies on the solstice. The sun rises on Xmas, the 25th, or roughly there around. I'm saying celebrate both. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Why not be jolly twice in the month? Makes perfect sense. Remember, we celebrate, not celibate. And if you do, that's your thing. But I wouldn't impose that on anybody else. There's people that have reasons for being celibate or declaring celibacy for a short amount of time till they figure out their shit or whatever. But the idea of celibacy being imposed upon us by religions as some sort of moral ethic that makes us better and nice people is absolute bullshit. And there's nothing, even the God in the Bible told him to be fruitful and multiply. Likewise, there's nothing in the Bible against drinking, but yet we're told that that's some moral code that Christians have to follow. Nothing against drugs, but you got to be, clean and sober, and not be having sex except with your spouse and only then to procreate. Having those ideas imposed upon us by a religion, no, I don't buy that. Because here's the thing: a witch thinks. A witch doesn't just react. A witch doesn't just go with what everybody else says. You should be thinking outside the box. Think of everything differently. And for my whole lifetime, I've never heard a pagan advocate this. I've heard a couple pagans adopt Jesus as a deity. I don't really know how that works, but whatever works for them. But I've never heard anybody say this. I think we should celebrate both the death and the life of our God, our sun God. What the fuck would we be without our sun God? It'd be cold. Shit wouldn't grow. We'd be dead. Really, we would have never. The oceans would have been frozen, and so we would have never crawled out of the ocean and learned to be land-dwelling mammals. So, thanks, son. All right, that's pretty much what I have to say. So, happy solstice, Merry Xmas, and even though New Year's was on Samhain, Happy New Year. Blessed be.
This is the sun. As far back as 10,000 BC, history is abundant with carvings and writings reflecting people's respect and adoration for this object. And it is simple to understand why, as every morning the sun would rise, bringing vision, warmth, and security, saving man from the cold, blind, predator-filled darkness of night. Without it, the cultures understood the crops would not grow and life on the planet would not survive. These realities made the sun the most adorned object of all time. Likewise, they were also very aware of the stars. The tracking of the stars allowed them to recognize and anticipate events which occurred over long periods of time, such as eclipses and full moons. They in turn cataloged celestial groups into what we know today as constellations. This is the cross of the zodiac, one of the oldest conceptual images in human history. It reflects the sun as it figuratively passes through the 12 major constellations over the course of a year. It also reflects the 12 months of the year, the 4 seasons, and the solstices and equinoxes. The term zodiac relates to the fact that constellations were anthropomorphized or personified as figures or animals. In other words, the early civilizations did not just follow the sun and stars, they personified them with elaborate myths involving their movements and relationships. The sun, with its life-giving and saving qualities, was personified as a representative of the unseen creator or God, God's Son, the light of the world, the savior of humankind. Likewise, the 12 constellations represented places of travel for God's Son, and were identified by names, usually representing elements of nature that happened during that period of time. For example, Aquarius, the water bearer, who brings the spring rains. This is Horus. He is the sun god of Egypt of around 3000 BC. He is the sun anthropomorphized, and his life is a series of allegorical myths involving the sun's movement in the sky. From the ancient hieroglyphics in Egypt, we know much about this solar messiah. For instance, Horus, being the sun or the light, had an enemy known as Set, and Set was the personification of the darkness or night. And, metaphorically speaking, every morning Horus would win the battle against Set, while in the evening Set would conquer Horus and send him into the underworld. It is important to note that dark versus light, or good versus evil, is one of the most ubiquitous mythological dualities ever known, and is still expressed on many levels to this day. Broadly speaking, the story of Horus is as follows. Horus was born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary. His birth was accompanied by a star in the east, which, in turn, 3 kings followed to locate and adorn the newborn Savior. At the age of 12, he was a prodigal child teacher, and at the age of 30, he was baptized by a figure known as Anup, and thus began his ministry. Horus had 12 disciples he traveled about with, performing miracles such as healing the sick and walking on water. Horus was known by many gestural names such as the Truth, the Light, God's Anointed Son, the Good Shepherd, the Lamb of God, and many others. After being betrayed by Typhon, Horus was crucified, buried for 3 days, and thus resurrected. These attributes of Horus, whether original or not, seem to permeate many cultures of the world, for many other gods are found to have the same general mythological structure. Attis of Phrygia, born of the Virgin Nana on December 25th, crucified, placed in a tomb, and after 3 days was resurrected. Krishna of India, born of the Virgin Devaki, with a star in the east signaling his coming. He performed miracles with his disciples, and, upon his death, was resurrected. Dionysus of Greece, born of a virgin on December 25th, was a traveling teacher who performed miracles such as turning water into wine. He was referred to as the King of Kings, God's only begotten Son, the Alpha and Omega, and many others. And, upon his death, he was resurrected. Mithra of Persia, born of a virgin on December 25th, he had 12 disciples and performed miracles, and upon his death was buried for 3 days and thus resurrected. He was also referred to as the Truth, the Light, and many others. Interestingly, the sacred day of worship of Mithra was Sunday. The fact of the matter is, there are numerous saviors from different periods from all over the world which subscribe to these general characteristics. The question remains, why these attributes? Why the virgin birth on December 25th? Why dead for 3 days in the inevitable resurrection? Why 12 disciples or followers? To find out, let's examine the most recent of the solar messiahs. Jesus Christ was born of the Virgin Mary on December 25th in Bethlehem. His birth was announced by a star in the east, which 3 kings or magi followed to locate and adorn the new Savior. He was a child teacher at 12, and at the age of 30 he was baptized by John the Baptist, and thus began his ministry. Jesus had 12 disciples, which he traveled about with, performing miracles such as healing the sick, walking on water, raising the dead. He was also known as the King of Kings, the Son of God, the Light of the World, the Alpha and Omega, the Lamb of God, and many, many others. After being betrayed by his disciple Judas and sold for 30 pieces of silver, he was crucified, placed in a tomb, and after 3 days was resurrected and ascended into heaven. First of all, the birth sequence is completely astrological. The star in the east is Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, which, on December 24th, aligns with the 3 brightest stars in Orion's belt. These 3 bright stars in Orion's belt are called today what they were called in ancient times, the 3 kings. And the 3 kings and the brightest star, Sirius, all point to the place of the sunrise on December 25th. This is why the 3 kings follow the star in the east, in order to locate the sunrise, the birth of the sun. The Virgin Mary is the constellation Virgo, also known as Virgo the Virgin. Virgo in Latin means virgin. The ancient glyph for Virgo is the altered M. This is why Mary, along with other virgin mothers, such as Adonis's mother Myra or Buddha's mother Maya, begin with an M. Virgo is also referred to as the house of bread, and the representation of Virgo is a virgin holding a sheaf of wheat. This house of bread and its symbol of wheat represents August and September, the time of harvest. In turn, Bethlehem, in fact, literally translates to house of bread. Bethlehem is thus a reference to the constellation Virgo, a place in the sky, not on Earth. There's another very interesting phenomenon that occurs around December 25th, or the winter solstice. From the summer solstice to the winter solstice, the days become shorter and colder. And from the perspective of the northern hemisphere, the sun appears to move south and get smaller and more scarce. The shortening of the days and the expiration of the crops when approaching the winter solstice symbolize the process of death to the ancients. It was the death of the sun. And by December 22nd, the sun's demise was fully realized, for the sun, having moved south continually for 6 months, makes it to its lowest point in the sky. Here a curious thing occurs. The sun stops moving south, at least perceivably, for 3 days. And during this 3-day pause, the sun resides in the vicinity of the Southern Cross, or Crux, constellation. And after this time, on December 25th, the sun moves 1 degree, this time north, foreshadowing longer days, warmth, and spring. And thus it was said, the sun died on the cross, was dead for 3 days, only to be resurrected or born again. This is why Jesus and numerous other sun gods share the crucifixion, 3-day death, and resurrection concept. It is the sun's transition period before it shifts its direction back into the northern hemisphere, bringing spring and thus salvation. However, they did not celebrate the resurrection of the sun until the spring equinox, or Easter. This is because at the spring equinox the sun officially overpowers the evil darkness, as daytime thereafter becomes longer in duration than the night, and the revitalizing conditions of spring emerge. Now, probably the most obvious of all the astrological symbolism around Jesus regards the 12 disciples. They are simply the 12 constellations of the zodiac, which Jesus, being the sun, travels about with. In fact, the number 12 is replete throughout the Bible. This text has more to do with astrology than anything else. Coming back to the cross of the zodiac, the figurative life of the sun, this was not just an artistic expression or tool to track the sun's movement. It was also a pagan spiritual symbol, the shorthand of which looked like this. This is not a symbol of Christianity. It is a pagan adaptation of the cross of the zodiac. This is why Jesus in early occult art is always shown with his head on the cross, for Jesus is the Son of God, the light of the world, the risen Savior, who will come again, as it does every morning, the glory of God, who defends against the works of darkness, as he is born again every morning, and can be seen coming in the clouds, up in heaven, with his crown of thorns, or sun rays. Now, of the many astronomical metaphors in the Bible, one of the most important has to do with the ages. Throughout the scriptures, there are numerous references to the age. In order to understand this, we need to be familiar with a phenomenon known as the precession of the equinoxes. The ancient Egyptians, along with cultures long before them, recognized that approximately every 2150 years, the sunrise on the morning of the spring equinox would occur in a different sign of the zodiac. This has to do with a slow, angular wobble that the Earth maintains as it rotates on its axis. It is called a precession because the constellations go backwards rather than through the normal yearly cycle. The amount of time it takes for the precession to go through all 12 signs is roughly 25,765 years. This is also called the Great Year. And ancient societies were very aware of this, and they referred to each 2150-year period as an age. From 4300 BC to 2150 BC, it was the age of Taurus, the bull. From 2150 BC to 1 AD, it was the age of Aries, the ram. And from 1 AD to 2150 AD, it is the age of Pisces, the age we are still in to this day. And in and around 2150, we will enter the new age, the age of Aquarius. Now, the Bible reflects, broadly speaking, a symbolic movement through 3 ages while foreshadowing a 4th. In the Old Testament, when Moses comes down Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, he is very upset to see his people worshiping a golden bull calf. In fact, he shattered the stone tablets and instructed his people to kill each other in order to purify themselves. Most biblical scholars will attribute this anger to the fact that the Israelites were worshiping a false idol or something to that effect. The reality is, the golden bull is Taurus the bull, and Moses represents the new age of Aries the ram. This is why Jews even today still blow the ram's horn. Moses represents the new age of Aries, and upon the new age, everyone must shed the old age. Other deities mark these transitions as well, such as Mithra, a pre-Christian god who kills the bull in the same symbology. Now Jesus is the figure who ushers in the age following Aries, the age of Pisces, or the 2 fish. Fish symbolism is very abundant in the New Testament. Jesus feeds 5,000 people with bread and 2 fish. When he begins his ministry walking along Galilee, he befriends 2 fishermen who follow him. And I think we have all seen the Jesus fish on the back of people's cars. Little do they know what it actually means. It is a pagan astrological symbolism for the sun's kingdom during the age of Pisces. Also, Jesus' assumed birth date is essentially the start of this age. At Luke 22:10, when Jesus is asked by his disciples where the next Passover will be after he is gone, Jesus replies, "Behold, when ye are entered into the city, there shall a man meet you, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he entereth in." This scripture is by far one of the most revealing of all the astrological references. The man bearing the pitcher of water is Aquarius, the water bearer, who is always pictured as a man pouring out a pitcher of water. He represents the age after Pisces, and when the sun, God's Son, leaves the age of Pisces, Jesus, it will go into the house of Aquarius, as Aquarius follows Pisces in the precession of the equinoxes. All Jesus is saying is that after the age of Pisces will come the age of Aquarius. Now, we have all heard about the end times and the end of the world. The cartoonish depictions in the book of Revelation aside, the main source of this idea comes from Matthew 28:20, where Jesus says, "I will be with you even to the end of the world." However, in the King James Version, world is a mistranslation, among many mistranslations. The actual word being used is eon, which means age. I will be with you even to the end of the age, which is true, as Jesus' solar Piscean personification will end when the sun enters the age of Aquarius. The entire concept of end times and the end of the world is a misinterpreted astrological allegory. Let's tell that to the approximately 100 million people in America who believe the end of the world is coming. Furthermore, the character of Jesus being a literary and astrological hybrid is most explicitly a plagiarization of the Egyptian sun god Horus. For example, inscribed about 3,500 years ago on the walls at the Temple of Luxor in Egypt are images of the Annunciation, the Immaculate Conception, the birth, and the adoration of Horus. The images begin with Thoth announcing to the Virgin Isis that she will conceive Horus, then Neph, the Holy Ghost, impregnating the Virgin, and then the virgin birth and the adoration. This is exactly the story of Jesus' miracle conception. In fact, the literary similarities between the Egyptian religion and the Christian religion are staggering. And the plagiarism is continuous. The story of Noah and Noah's Ark is taken directly from tradition. The concept of the Great Flood is ubiquitous throughout the ancient world, with over 200 cited claims in different periods and times. However, one need look no further for a pre-Christian source than the Epic of Gilgamesh, written in 2600 BC. This story talks of a great flood commanded by God, an ark with saved animals upon it, and even the release and return of a dove, all held in common with the biblical story among many other similarities. And then there is the plagiarized story of Moses. Upon Moses' birth, it is said that he was placed in a reed basket and set adrift in a river in order to avoid infanticide. He was later rescued by a daughter of royalty and raised by her as a prince. This baby in a basket story was lifted directly from the myth of Sargon of Akkad of around 2250 BC. Sargon was born, placed in a reed basket in order to avoid infanticide, and set adrift in a river. He was in turn rescued and raised by Aki, a royal midwife. Furthermore, Moses is known as the lawgiver, the giver of the Ten Commandments, the Mosaic Law. However, the idea of a law being passed from God to a prophet up on a mountain is also a very old motif. Moses is just another lawgiver in a long line of lawgivers in mythological history. In India, Manu was the great lawgiver. In Crete, Minos ascended Mount Dicta, where Zeus gave him the sacred laws, while in Egypt there was Meses, who carried stone tablets and upon them the laws of God were written. Manu, Minos, Meses, Moses. And as far as the Ten Commandments, they are taken outright from spell 125 in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. What the Book of the Dead phrased, "I have not stolen," became "Thou shalt not steal." "I have not killed," became "Thou shalt not kill." "I have not told lies," became "Thou shalt not bear false witness," and so forth. In fact, the Egyptian religion is likely the primary foundational basis for the Judeo-Christian theology. Baptism, afterlife, final judgment, virgin birth, death and resurrection, crucifixion, the Ark of the Covenant, circumcision, saviors, Holy Communion, Great Flood, Easter, Christmas, Passover, and many, many more are all attributes of Egyptian ideas long predating Christianity and Judaism. Justin Martyr, one of the first Christian historians and defenders, wrote, "When we say that he, Jesus Christ, our teacher, was produced without sexual union, was crucified and died and rose again and ascended into heaven, we propound nothing different from what you believe regarding those who you esteem sons of Jupiter." In a different writing, Justin Martyr said, "He was born of a virgin, except this in common with what you believe of Perseus." It's obvious that Justin and other early Christians knew how similar Christianity was to the pagan religions. However, Justin had a solution. As far as he was concerned, the devil did it. The devil had the foresight to come before Christ and create his characteristics in the pagan world.
Fundamentalist Christianity, fascinating. These people actually believe the world is 12,000 years old. Swear to God. I actually asked one of these guys, okay, dinosaur fossils. He says, dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith. I think God put you here to test my faith, dude.
The Bible is nothing more than an astrotheological literary hybrid, just like nearly all religious myths before it. In fact, the aspect of transference of one character's attributes to a new character can be found within the book itself. In the Old Testament, there is the story of Joseph. Joseph was a prototype for Jesus. Joseph was born of a miracle birth. Jesus was born of a miracle birth. Joseph was of 12 brothers. Jesus had 12 disciples. Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver. Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Brother Judah suggests the sale of Joseph. Disciple Judas suggests the sale of Jesus. Joseph began his work at the age of 30. Jesus began his work at the age of 30. The parallels go on and on. Furthermore, is there any non-biblical historical evidence of any person living with the name Jesus, the son of Mary, who traveled...
I find it fascinating what he said about that. Because if you know, like, 7 notes. So recently, I've had a video. I mean, I don't know how recent. I mean, when I say recently, it's normally like my last 10 videos, probably is what I'm referring to. But in my last 10 videos, the high percentage magic video might even be more than that. So this is not accounting the podcast, which is kind of like the just audio version of my video on YouTube. But it's because it goes on to Spreaker and all the other platforms such as iTunes and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else. So you're wondering, you're one of those people that wonder why I always record my videos and there's an audio of the same video on YouTube. Well, it's just because I put it on my podcast. My podcast automatically gets uploaded to YouTube. Now maybe I should think about stopping that. This way my YouTube videos are just my YouTube videos, and then my podcast is going to find there, and this way it'll increase the people that hear my podcast, and people put on YouTube are just, but regardless, it really doesn't, to me, it doesn't really matter, you know, one way or another. But that's just so you know. But what the fuck was I about to look at? Oh yeah, so recently enough, I made a video, and I was using high percentage magic to teach. And what I mean by that is he made a video on all the I can't say that word, but those special herbs that, you know, people use in New Age, if you want to call it that, but spirituality in general. Use a tuning fork to play them all for you until it's exactly what they were for. Very important fucking video, I think. I think it's very informative and very well done, well made video. So that being said, oh yeah, so he talks about do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, but there's not 2 do's. One was actually something to that effect was this first sound. So it's re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do was, I think, his original set. So anyways, in fa, la, 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 the Deck the Halls of Mountain Holly song, which Birch just talked about, saying that it was hail the sun, hail the sun, hail the sun, hail the, I don't know if it's just earth or herbs, I can't really hear. But it sounds like earth. But fa and la are 2 of those notes. And I haven't looked it up yet, but it would be very interesting to see if fa meaning hail, so la being the sun, if in fact that one met up with, you know, the solar chakra or the solar frequency and all that. If one of those met up with that, that'd be very interesting to see if there's a correlation there. So that's something I'm going to look into later, but nonetheless, you know, those 2 sounds are part of the 7 notes, which, you know, the 7 notes, 7 fucking planets, 7 days of the week, 7 deadly sins, 7 continents, 7 cities, 7 everything, right? So 7 major organs. I mean, there's 7 everything. So when you're dealing with shit like that, it's very interesting. And you know there's going to be some as above, so below correlations. So that's why I say that out loud. I mean, it may not be the one I'm talking about, but you're going to find something interesting if you go down those paths. I mean, I already know that, so I'm not going to beat that to death. But what I want to point out there is not that, you know, the people that were conquered, whether it's the Druids, the Bards, or those insane, were conquered, yet we're singing their songs. Not what like I said in the beginning, my point of this is not to say that I'm not going to restate what I already stated, which is the Bible teaches you witchcraft, which I believe it does. I believe it not necessarily teaches you witchcraft, but it's older stories in the Bible. And my point of this is not to be like that Christians stole from us, which, you know, they did. But my point is to say that whether or not it's stolen information or it's not stolen information is irrelevant It's an updated version of really old stories. You know, and even the stories in the Bible are fucking old, right? They're fucking old, man. It's to the point where they don't make sense. But they're newer than the old stories. Now, the way I like to look at it, if I want to take a set apart my programming and my belief systems, look at this objectively, okay? If I was somebody who didn't give a shit about Christianity, you know, not coming from a background where I was Christian for a while, and then I was against Christianity because I found out about all the things they did, and then, you know, finding this, let's say what I'm doing now is my real spirituality, okay? Well, let's just say, so first I'm a Christian, now I'm against Christianity, right? So the polarity right there, which is kind of why I say you gotta find your spirituality from opening your bottom chakra and all that shit that I like to say often. This is part of that, you know, you go from one polarity to the next, you explore both sides of that polarity, and then from there you hopefully get in the middle, and once you're in the middle, then you can open up those middle channels, those energy centers, chakras, whatever you want to call them. And that's kind of the point. But, you know, I put all that aside, let's look at this subjectively, is when the people wrote the Bible, before they wrote the Bible, when these stories were older stories, whether, you know, they took all these stories and after they conquered the lands and they said, okay, we're going to take all these old stories, but we're going to put them in our words, and this is the religion we're going to make, and whatever the case was, who knows, okay? But you can look at it, I like to think that it's more like, I mean, someone later on came along and said, okay, we're going to turn this into dogma, a doctrine, and adopt it and get people to believe in not the message, but believe in, you know, the man in here, and we're going to make it fit our purposes. But before that happened, it was simply them re-recording the old information down in this book and their newer way of perceiving things. It's like maybe when the old stories were out, they meant one thing and they were teaching you by story, by symbolism, you know, like you do with movies basically. Most people don't even know that the movies they're watching are like echoes of these old stories, like Egyptian mythologies and all these other old mythologies. Basically astrology, you know, where the sun is exalted, where the planets are exalted. Well, those are the movies we're watching. But people don't know that because they just see the pictures, and it speaks to them on a level that they don't care, they don't need to know that. But if you really look at it, you can see how it relates to astrology, and, you know, some of these stories are even in the Bible and whatnot. So, but like I said before, when the corpus callosum wasn't created yet, if someone heard a voice, it was the voice of God. So these stories were written in such ways of the gods, very probably maybe even more primitive than they are now. And what we have in the Bible is an updated version. Now, this is putting aside the fact that it's been used to, whatever, enslave us, make us fucking feel like victims and pieces of shit and all that, okay? That's besides what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to say that they were rewritten due to the fact that, you know, it was very old and potentially primitive, and they had a better understanding of the things. Kind of like now, when you take a Bible story and you can put your own spin on it and say, okay, well, this is what was really going on. Like when Birch says, Jesus, you know, I'll give you a shout out even though your people really pissed me off. It's the zealots of your religion that really pissed me off. Anybody that came over and, you know, twisted your message to do good miracles, and instead of asking God to perform magic for you, perform your own magic, you know. This is his interpretation of the Jesus story, of the Jesus mythos. And he's trying to prove a point by it. And, you know, he doesn't even, I don't know, he's probably read some of the Bible or whatever. You know, most people that want to do a good critique of the Bible read the Bible so they know what's going on. But you know what I mean? So reading the Bible as a witch, he can take that story and come up with, okay, well, this is probably what I think it meant, but, you know, they twisted it into this bullshit. That's what I mean. That's what they may have did with the Bible initially. And obviously someone came along and fucked it all up for everybody else. But the point of that is I think that's what the Bible stories are. That's what I try to think about it when I'm at least thinking about it objectively. Is simply that, you know, the Bible stories were all the stories initially. And then, you know, if I want to pretend like there's no corruption and, you know, the world isn't as corrupt as we like to give it credit for and all that, which it probably is. It probably was just always created just to fucking enslave us and all that. But if I want to pretend like that's not real, then this is the fucking justification. This is what I use. This is kind of what I think about. Is that they were retranslating it in the way that more people could understand it in a better way. Because people, when they first started maybe having these stories, maybe they were oral traditions. Maybe, well, a lot of people couldn't read and write. That was only for richer classes. We know that. We know that in history it was, a privilege, and a very high privilege at that, to be able to read and write. So to have these stories written down way back when, I mean, seems unlikely. And if it was only for kings, then it would have been different languages. So, and obviously it wasn't the first translations of the Bible definitely weren't in English and all that. And things always get fucked in translation. But I think whenever it comes to divinely inspired works, I think when you're translating it, even if you have a bad intention, I think there's a certain amount of that that's going to be inspired correctly, and people are going to get the message, even if you have bad intentions. And you can see that. I mean, I've watched people, and whenever they're talking about something, it's like, oh, okay, they're mad at this, their program is coming out, but you can still hear the truth in their voice, even though they're trying hard to make you fucking see it the way they want you to see it. That's besides the point. So, what the main focus of what I'm trying to say here is, if you are a magical practitioner, and like me, the last few years, I felt not bad about celebrating Christmas, but it was like, man, Christmas is this fucking thing from this religion that, I'm kind of against now, that I didn't really understand, when I was for it. And I mean, it's all about money and gifts and all this and blah 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 blah. So it wasn't that I was not having fun celebrating and seeing my family and enjoying the days off while I was working and all that, because all that I did. But there was a part of me that felt like I don't know, I guess a hypocrite and all that. I've watched all these videos by Birch. I've seen them all, but it wasn't until yesterday night to be exact, after work, we're driving along, got my daughter in the back seat, she was pretty tired, so the drive, we were pretty positive the drive was going to knock her out, which it did. We forgot her bottle, something, because she likes to go to sleep with juice, which is terrible for her teeth, so we try to avoid it. So we forgot her bottle, whether it was intentional or not intentional, but she wanted it. As soon as we pulled in the driveway, she falls asleep to get her bottle, and we still drove around for another 10 minutes to make sure she was really out, and I brought her home, and I brought her up to bed and all that. But listening to Christmas music, she loves Christmas songs, and we did the Chipmunks Christmas and all that. And it was Little Drummer Boy comes on, and I was thinking about, and I say it out loud to my wife, I'm like, yeah, the three wise men, three magi, bring frankincense, myrrh, and gold, and you say what you want about gold, but it's pretty, it's one of the best conductors for electricity, and it's one of the, anyways. To me, those are all very spiritual, magical fucking things to give somebody, especially the frankincense and the myrrh. And there might have been something else that was given. I don't know, frankincense and myrrh were two things or one, like there's some incense for you, there's two kinds, here's some gold and here's something else. But the point is, that's what I was thinking about at the time. Then all of a sudden, this idea in my head came to me that, well, Christmas is about kids. It's more about the kids. We have this Santa Claus guy, which is a jolly guy, jolly time of year. It's kind of this aspect of Jupiter. Big fat jolly guy goes around the world giving kids gifts, and anyways. But he is he's got kind of some justice, some law correspondences, you better not pout, you better not cry, you better not shout or something like that. I'm telling you why, Santa Claus coming to town and making all this chicken twice, we'll find out who's naughty or nice. So, he's kind of fair and just in there, because if you're not a good kid, you're not going to get nothing. If you pout, cry, and whatever else he says, you're not going to get shit. So, a lot of Jupiter aspects there. But the point is, Christ was giving gifts on Christmas. The Little Drummer Boy is about, he had no gift for him, so he played a song for him, which, song is so powerful. Song is very important to most people in our society. I mean, I couldn't live without music. But it came to me, what I was thinking about was, well, why do we have this lie, or why do we have this story about Santa Claus that, we give our kids every year, and you know, if you have the money, you go almost broke trying to make a good Christmas for your children. I know that's what I do, which is fucking silly, but it's something we do every year and something I wouldn't dream of not doing. And then, you know, even, this is not what I was thinking about at the time, but, you know, just to prove my point, there's a witch, hardcore witch, who, you know, you listen to his stuff, and he's always against the right-hand fucking Christian fucking politicians, and does not believe that this is a Christian country, but he says he's celebrating Christmas. And, you know, his justifications make sense, you know. And, you know, the story of Christ makes sense whenever you look at it astrologically. It's like, well, Christ was really born sometime in the New Year, more like where the Chinese fucking New Year is and shit like that. It's okay, but it's more about the sun dies, and then on the third day, somewhere around the 25th, 24th at midnight, which is 25th, is when the sun starts moving again on its axis, because the people, before they started writing things down, they looked up in the sky and said, okay, well, if something was a god, that big fucking ball of light that gives us heat and makes everything grow and stops us from freezing and all this shit, is probably the closest thing, or is, in fact, our fucking god. So they worship that. And then, you know, they had all these stories about it from, you know, you saw it all with the zeitgeist thing, every culture that has its Messiah story. And, you know, the newest one is Christianity, as far as we can tell, is the newest Messiah mythos story, Christ. And so, where was I going with that? I was initially talking about what came to me, but then I started going on my side topic of why I think it's important to understand the death and rebirth thing. So, I mean, I know that's like an Easter thing in the Christian mythology, to celebrate God dying and coming back to life 3 days later on Easter. But so, like, that's their way of celebrating God's death, which is in spring, and then after the equinox, they celebrate God's birth, which is funny because, you know, it's the solstice, and then this one is an equinox. So this is the winter solstice, and I think it's not the summer solstice, but that's after the spring equinox that they celebrate their holidays, which is more proof of paganism and our religion being within Christianity. I mean, fuck. I mean, if that doesn't prove it, I don't know what does.
In like, 10 kilometers, turn right to merge onto ON 417 west toward Ottawa.
Yeah, that's more proof of our fucking religion being from paganism, because, you know, Christmas happens 3 days after the winter solstice, generally speaking. Around the 21st, 22nd is the solstice, whenever, like Birch said, whenever the sun enters Capricorn. And for Easter, I was always told, and from what I looked up, it's the first Sunday after the equinox, after the full moon, is when they decide to do Easter. And that's why Easter has such a big variation from sometimes the beginning of April to the end of March, as long as the midway through March mark. That's why it's such a big variation. So, I mean, all these proofs that, you know, Christianity is really this weird form of paganism, if you don't just listen to what the priest says. If you go by, like, what the book says, and the stories in the book, it's like a way of teaching you fucking witchcraft. Shit like that. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. But all that aside, when I was in the car listening to Little Drummer Boy last night, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the fact that I'm back in auto. What the fuck? Sorry. I had it in 4-wheel drive because of all the snow. Anyways, I was thinking about the fact that sorry, I was thinking about if I should text my boss or not, because the snow's slowing me down when I'm driving slow. Sorry, okay, anyways, I will after. I was thinking about how Christmas is about the children, and how we go above and beyond out of our way to give kids magic of Christmas, so they experience that, you know, like, they're so important, they were good all year, that they deserve a gift from this being who can see them at all times. You know what I mean? We've created this thought form, this idea, this own little mythology. Well, we're not created, but we kind of add to it in every movie and song that we sing about, you know, that jolly guy from the North Pole. You know, we add and add and add to that idea. But the point is, we make it all about the children. It's all about the children. When your children grow up and they don't really believe anymore, you still do the gift thing, but it's not special. But it's like, well, why is that? Why, after all these years, we know that the Christ story is about the nativity birth and the birth of God and all that. And even if you don't want to go to that, why would it be important for you as a pagan to still buy your kids gifts? And if you don't, why does this touch people in this way where there's so many Christmas movies and Christmas songs? And, it's so huge. You know what I mean? What is this? There's got to be more to this than what we're told. We're told it was a pagan tradition that was stolen by the Christians, or and some Christians won't even celebrate it because they know that or they believe that. But there's more to it than that. You feel wrong if you feel bad about celebrating it. I know I did. And at the same sense, it's like, anyways, what is this about? And what I came up with was something along the lines of what Peterson said. And one of the episodes I played, I think it was one about Cain and Abel, but it might have been the Adam and Eve one. He was talking about women when pregnant women, they were kind of treated as like public property. People kind of touched their belly, and he knew these fucking really tough looking guys in Montreal that he kind of walk on the other side of the fucking road when you see them, but yet when he was walking his kid, these fucking big tough fucking looking guys would just turn into putty when they saw a baby. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Jesus. Switch. But you know what I mean? They see this baby and they just feel something inside of them. It's like, as much as life sucks, when you see a child, it's like there's something pure about it, something beautiful about it. And because he was doing the biblical stories, his idea was, this is the potential savior. That can save mankind. I see that in all my kids. Every time I look at them. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on, everybody, but holy fuck. Anyways, and I believe that. I think there's something to that. I think that's why we go out of our way to try to make our children happy on Christmas. And I mean, I don't know too many parents that were able to say, no, you were naughty this year, no gifts. And I've threatened to do that, and then still buy the gifts and then just put them upstairs and then not give it to them on Christmas. And that idea alone is just heartbreaking. So no matter how bad your children might have been, I don't know any parent that could do that. And it's just, there's more to Christmas than just the story of Christ. Then, and I mean, I honor the son. The son dies and is back alive. If it wasn't for the son, we'd be dead. So, but there's more to it than that. And it's not that the children are the savior. We all have the potential to be the people that can fix the things that might be wrong with our world. And I'm not saying our world's flawed and fucked up. I don't think that. I think that we make our own flaws. I think the more people go around saying we are flawed and this world is fucked.
In 1 kilometer, turn right to merge onto ON 417 west toward Ottawa.
The more people go around saying this place is fucked up and all that, the more it kind of becomes fucked up. So I try to make sure I don't say shit like that anymore, because I don't believe that's a correct way of going. I mean, obviously there's problems, we can fix problems, but we have to have problems to...
Use the right lane to merge onto ON 417 west toward Ottawa.
We have to have problems to be able to find solutions. And if everything was perfect, well then what would be the fucking point, So, so I'm not saying this world isn't flawed and that we have this perfect world and, love and light, y'all. No, that's not what I'm fucking saying at all.
Turn right.
I don't believe that for 1 second, but I also don't believe that we're this cancer, this problem on this planet to the point where we need to be eradicated, or, that people who made the Georgia Guidestones are trying to kill us with coronavirus or anything like that. I don't believe that. But, yesterday when I was listening to the Little Drummer Boy, man, what I just said to came to me, it's like, and to me, it's like, okay, I mean, there could be some part of me that loves Christian programming, that could be Christian programming. One of my, well, not my first thoughts, but one of my fucking thoughts, I'm not gonna lie to you, that came to mind, because, I spent the last few years, wondering why I should even bother, anyways.
For 50 kilometers, continue straight.
Point is, there's something special about Christmas. It's the reason we make the songs and the movies. It's the reason, the Deck the Halls of Boughs of Holly still has pagan fucking and, druidic craft and lore to it, but even they knew there's something about it. The Jesus story itself comes from an older tradition. The people that know there's something special about every fucking child that's born. And then you can say it's all about God. It's all about the one child, the perfect being that was born. You can say that if you want, and whatever. If you want to say that, that's fine. But I tend to believe it's about all the children being born at any given time, at any given year, and even the ones that are already born that are, it's not just about Christ and this one perfect God child. It's more about all the children. It's about all the beautiful children of the world deserve a gift. We want to make them happy. We want them to know that for that last year, they did a good fucking job. They are worth it, and what I talked about last time about parents and all that, having trouble giving their kids attention and all that. Well, this is the one, it's a gift, and you can say it's superficial, that, you gotta show your love through gifts and all that, and I get it, that's not a substitute for good parenting by any stretch of the imagination. It's giving your kid a gift, I'm sliding all over the place, for God. Yeah, I'm not saying that, but it's one way to say, I'm sorry, I know all year long I didn't it gives you a reason to be nicer, and in this day and age we need that, because it's too easy to be like, well, maybe I don't tell my kid I love him enough, but he did a lot of fucking bad shit too, so, maybe it's a good thing I don't. I hope to God that doesn't happen, but, in case it does, Christmas gives you that time of year where you can go up to your mom and maybe you didn't give her a hug all fucking year, and it gives you a reason to give them a fucking hug. Sometimes you need that, a reason to show love, appreciation to people, you need that. It's not something trivial, to be nice to people, to send money to even if the people don't get the donations, it's not like that goes unnoticed. If you are sending something to a charity, and you legitimately think the charity is getting that money, well, that's not going nowhere. But, to me, Christmas has always been about that. Like I said, it's a story of I woke up on Christmas morning and I saw my mom crying. And I asked her why she was crying. I don't know what it was. Somewhere between probably 7 to 11 probably. And I asked her why she was crying, and she was like thinking about all the kids that woke up, without presents. Oh, fuck. If they believed in Santa Claus, thought, why the fuck was I bad? And that may have made them worse. Oh, it's not what she said, but that's what I'm adding to it. But you know what I mean? They all woke up without gifts. My parents were drug addicts. Maybe they just couldn't afford it. They tried hard. Maybe they got robbed before Christmas. Those evil acts that people create, not anything else. People create. That's what she was crying about. What happens if a kid does believe in Santa Claus? Santa Claus doesn't come and give what they want. Because there are problems about lying to our children. I just highlighted that. I get that. It's heartbreaking to a child when they, anyways. But there's also some very important aspects to it. So I'm not saying this is a perfect system, but it's the one we've got, and to shit on it and to not celebrate it is probably just as bad, if not worse. Is it better for a kid to have 7 to 10 years of magic, or hopefully 12 or 13? Probably not. But is it better for a kid to have 10 years of magic, or no years of magic at all? No belief that there's some being up there. Because, they don't understand God right away. And God's not paying it that. God doesn't give you gifts, And rightfully so, right? So imagine if they were to take Santa Claus and say, okay, well, we're not going to use Santa Claus. And maybe they did this, who knows? Maybe that's why it got changed. But imagine if Santa Claus went around giving kids gifts for Christmas. It would be great for Christianity for those first 7 to 10 years that kids believed. Rock, yeah, they'd be going to church all the time. They wanted those gifts at Christmas. But then the church is putting their faith and the parents not have drug problems and not have gambling problems and not have just bills in general, and be able to give these kids a good Christmas because they're representing God after all. So, and then what happens whenever they find out that Santa Claus isn't, or that God really isn't the force? There's still a God, guys, but it was your parents the whole time bringing gifts. God was going through them. I mean, maybe they played it out that way, but then they might, shattering their belief in, that other being versus God, and would be, because then they initiated and not survive. After the first generations of kids that figured that out, that it might be, well, fuck this shit. They lied to us about that. Why wouldn't they lie to us about anything else? So that's probably why they put it on this other being that they created that has a lot of God-like characteristics. But anyways, I'm way off what I'm supposed to be talking about. Glad though I'm talking because these roads are pretty slippery. Otherwise I'd be fucking anxious about being late for work. But I mean, I can't go any faster else I'm gonna my fucking life. So it is as it is. I mean, it's not that bad. Especially where I am now. It's pretty nice now. But anyway, so there's something more to it, as you can tell. I mean, I'm not going to pretend my emotional fucking responses are some divine act. But I only get those under extreme circumstances when I'm talking about certain things that, and maybe I just woke up. Maybe it's earlier than it usually is. I don't know. But something special about making kids feel special on this time of year. There's something to God is within all of us. And I'm not talking about the Christian way, I'm talking about the way that we are all a piece of God. So even the adults that go out of their way to make their kids have a great Christmas and go go for it. As long as they don't focus too much on their problems and how the fuck are they going to bounce back in the new year and all that shit. I mean, they're still going to get good karma from treating these potential saviors, giving them hope for another fucking year. Especially in this day and age when things are so fucking bleak and dark. Giving everybody a little bit of light, a little bit of hope, a little bit of love is more important than ever. So, besides all the extra points that Birch talked about, that's what I'm saying about Christmas. I'm saying that, yeah, the Christ story is about God becoming incarnated as a human being. Before that, I guess we had prophets and all that, but we didn't necessarily have God as a being. And, Jesus came down to open up purgatory, open up the gates of heaven, because no one could go there before that, because God was still mad at the original sin, I guess, when he started to get over it. But Jesus, with the sacrifice and all that, opens the gates of heaven. I'm not even touching that shit. I'm touching the fact that there's a piece of God in all of us. From the time you're born to whatever age you are now, you're always going to be a piece of our Creator. Okay? And I'm not spinning this in a Christian, I'm spinning this in a magical witch sense. For me anyways, this is fucking spirituality. There's a piece of God in all of us. And when we either we're the children receiving the gift, and we're more the savior role, or we're the magi bringing the gifts, or maybe it's a year we can't really afford much, but our relatives and other people give us miracles of Christmas or whatever you want to call it. But we still manage to give our kids a good Christmas. Maybe that's when we're more like Mary and Joseph, or we're the little drummer boy who sees a new life and wants to celebrate it, but said we don't have any money, so we're gonna make a gift. There's all these different archetypes within that fucking song that you can play out. No reason to be all bent out of shape. Be like, well, I got no money, so fuck Christmas. I'm a witch anyways, I shouldn't be celebrating it. My kids, it's the best time to tell them, and, fuck it, they're only fucking 5 years old, but I'll fucking tell them the harsh truth now. So no! I don't have a better way to say that than just what I just came out of me, okay? I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I know it's heartbreaking to most children, but life is heartbreaking, so I think it's better to have a little bit of magic than no magic at all. Being heartbroken right off the hop. There's programs out there that if you're having hard times with money and other things, that you can still give your child a decent Christmas. Maybe you gotta set the standards to not be so high this year, and do what you gotta do. But your children are pure. that are innocent, okay? And every year that goes by, they might start doing things that make them less innocent, but they are still way more innocent than you or I. So they are closer to God, a perfected being, the light, Christ, whatever the fuck you want to call it. They are little lights in this time of darkness, which is why I'm so against the mask wearing thing. The little bodies need to heal and take in stuff. It's just, I don't want to see anybody harm, but, don't fucking, do what you can do and make them have my grandmother. My mother, both my grandmothers, God bless all of them. God's bless all of them. Especially my grandma LeBlanc, I tell the story all the time, and that's the one I tell you everybody that was a witch and all that. Very Christian as well. She went fucking broke every fucking year to give everybody a great Christmas. Started buying Christmas gifts as soon as she could. Really wanted to know what you wanted. Made it so special. Christmas Eve you went there. Christmas Day, this is a witch. But, she was a Christian too, but she fucking went above and beyond. Christmas was huge for her. From baking in the kitchen to giving everybody, what they wanted. Like, it was just phenomenal, and it didn't matter if she had to take all loans or whatever. She wanted Christmas to be special for everybody. Never understood it until now. There's something deeply symbolic and special about it. You just gotta pull yourself away from all that crap, all that whatever. It doesn't matter what Christmas is or has become. And I'm all for that, stores exploit it just to become rich. Absolutely, yeah. I know that, like everybody knows that. It doesn't take a fucking anybody smart to fucking realize that, okay? That, shit's been blown up and added to and fucked up, twisted and everything else. I know that everybody knows that. If I can fucking save a ton of money on Christmas, all I fucking would, but, I'm thinking about my grandmother doing this every year. Going on pure instinct to just, doing something for other people is always the best form of magic. Best form of magic. You go out of your way to give somebody a gift that they never really liked, or just making your family feel special on that day. It's the easiest form of magic there is. Instead of figuring out what you can get, just give. And give as much as you possibly can. You will get as much as you possibly can. It'll come back to you. And you have incoming karma and all that, so hopefully it doesn't take too long for you to see, so you don't think I'm bullshitting, but even if you try it and it doesn't happen right away, I'm so confident that, if it takes 6 months, I'm not saying it will, but it'll come back to you. You'll get it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You give, you get. You give out money, you get money. You give out love, you get love. You give out hate, you get hate. You dish out fucking revenge and, fucking hate, envy, and jealousy. Wish people suffer while getting all that back to you. That's just simple fucking arithmetic and laws of effect, laws of our realm, Every action has an opposite reaction. Meaning if you give, the amount of shit you give, you get an equal and opposite reaction. So if you give, you get. Getting is the opposite of giving, right? So if you give a fuckload, you get a fuckload, which is equal but opposite. You understand? That's probably the best way I can put it. Just probably end the video there because I probably can't get anything better than that. But like I said, the roads are bad, so I want to keep my mind off of this. Just smoke some bucket light. I gotta fucking drink water. Hopefully I've been on camera this whole time. I know I'm kind of leaning forward. I drive like that whenever shit's a little sketchy, but but yeah, so that's what came to me last night. Not all of that. A lot of that just came to me now. But I knew her and my wife and said, that's what it's about. She looked at me like I was fucking nuts. I went, well, I was wondering, you know, Christmas is all about the kids. You know, there's something special about Christmas. To the point where witches are on YouTube talking about how and why you can celebrate Christmas. And, you know, my grandmother being the biggest influence witch-wise on me that I fucking know used to go broke every year for fucking Christmas. Loved baking, surprised. You know, my grandpa got right into it too. He would fucking duct tape or clear tape all our gifts so perfectly that we couldn't even see the clear tape. It's like this big present that you want to open that you think you might know what it is, but even if you don't, it's still special. And you know, can't find it because grandpa fucking taped it so hard. And you know, even as you got older, you knew his little secrets and you found a way around it. But you know, even though you're like, this year I'm gonna fucking do it fast, and it's like, no, you saw grandpa's face and I'm already starting to snicker, and it's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna play along. God, I miss it. Children to yourself. You're all a part of God. Start treating ourselves like we are. Maybe that was the message of Christianity a long time ago. I don't know. But that's my fucking message. The reason you do a self-transformation, the reason you do these fucking secrets, the mysteries, my history, my story rather, instead of focusing on history, his story. The reason we do these fucking things is because we're fucking worth it. We're little fucking creators on the fucking micro level. We are pieces of fucking God. We are pieces of the light. We also have the darknesses. And this time of year, the darkest point of the year, the beginning of the year when things are hard, and you know, we have a great time where we have heat and electricity, and you could be flat fucking broken on the system, and people are looking down on you to the max, and still have heat and electricity. And if you can't pay those bills, there's grants out there for you. There's a ton of things and ways for you to still make Christmas a special time. And just saying, like, our ancestors, you know, had to bring in a big fucking log and set it on fire, and hopefully that was big enough and they didn't have to go back out, you know, in the middle of the fucking year and cut down more fucking trees. And, you know, they probably thought trees were sacred, and they probably got shit from trees, so they probably didn't want to cut down as many trees as they had to, you know. But in the same sense, you know, they had to keep warm and to dry that bitch out, you know, and that's the other part of it, right? It's like, well, why would they just cut down a bunch? It's like, well, it's a process to dry that shit out. That, I guess you could, but it's more work. The more work you do, the more you gotta eat. If the food you have is the food you had to fucking grow a year because they didn't have grocery stores, well, you know, you can see how every action has an equal and opposite reaction, meaning if you work more to get more logs in your house, well, that means you're gonna be fucking warmer, which means you'll be more comfortable, which means you might be more hungry. Because if you even worked more, you're gonna get even more hungry. And, you know, if you eat more, well, then there's less food that lasts all year long. Maybe you'll cut more trees down to get more warmth later on, but you definitely can't make more food out of nothing unless you actually learn from Jesus or know how to make more bread, fucking loaves and fish show up and shit like that. But you know, they had a hard time of it. And honoring them is paramount, you know, because they suffered through these fucking brutal winters. Like, I'm driving right now in a fucking snowstorm, okay? That's pretty shitty. It's pretty shitty. But it's like the ability to be warm in a car driving to and from work that I can afford to provide my family with the things we need and a great fucking Christmas, pay our bills so the heat stays on. You know, it is a small sacrifice, but still a sacrifice I gotta fucking take and make, because you can't have life without sacrificing anything. You have to sacrifice shit. That's what life's about, sacrificing. You sacrifice and you reap the rewards, you know. You go broke at Christmas time to give everybody a good Christmas, and then you get a good Christmas, you get good karma, you start off your year in a good fucking way, you know what I mean? But, you know, you don't do that, you can't afford it either, you know. I'm not here to fucking judge. I'm not telling you if you have bill money, you spend it all on Christmas. Well, pay your fucking damn bills, you know. Find a way. Don't be so proud and don't go into one of these stores like the Gap and all that. Get clothes and search for brand names and get food for your family. I mean, there's nothing wrong with providing for your family. that means the sacrifice is sucking it up and going into one of these places that, you know, when someone sees you walking in there, it's like, well, I'm running for my fucking family. So unless you're gonna hand me a big fat check to pay my fucking bills, I'm having hard times. So go fuck yourself. Fucking go talk about me behind that. I don't give a fuck. I'm proud knowing that I took initiative. I helped my fucking goddamn fucking family. And if you don't like it, you can suck my fucking meat. I'm a candy cane. You know? Don't ever feel that doing something great for your family is subpar or less than, or, you know, going in there because you have to pay your bills is not a bad fucking thing, you know? But if it's like, well, I want to save money so I can spend more money and, you know, get high at Christmas time, so I'll go buy my little pieces of God, my little pieces of light, my little Christs, you know, my 4 fucking kids. I'm gonna go buy them secondhand stuff so I can have more money to, you know, do selfish things. Like, no, buddy, that ain't fucking good. That ain't good at all. And I mean, if you can save by going there, especially if you have a kid that's just gonna outgrow clothes and you know, good quality stuff sometimes in those places. Especially if you go to a more, you know, I go to, it doesn't matter. I'm babbling on and on. I'm not really talking about Christmas or anything like that. The main point I wanted to get across was, on top of all the reasons that Birch lined up why Christmas is spiritual and sacred, and why it's pagan, and, you know, all those points from all the Jesus myths around the world to, you know, the Bible being fucking something that will teach you really old witchcrafts, to, you know, Jesus, you know, Jesus' message as it was, all those points, and, you know, using zeitgeist to point out all the fucking savior mythologies there was. This shit was all over the world, everywhere, you know. Taking our book that's used in our court system and everywhere else, you know, we can shit on it if we want. But, you know, I say, you know, read the fucking Bible. You know, find the parts that are bad in there. See if you can take out a message out of there, even if it's like what not to do. But, you know, if you're gonna shit on the Bible and not accept it, well, you should still at least fucking know it. And I'm not telling you, you don't have to read the Bible. The stories are all over the place. But if you're gonna have an opinion of it, I really seriously think that if you're gonna have an opinion of anything, you should at least research the thing you're gonna have a fucking opinion on. I mean, to me, that's just simple. That is just simple. Alright, I'm back, motherfuckers. I'm about to exit out of here. It's fucking raining. I'm on my way home now, though. Yeah, baby. Alright, so I spent all my ride up talking about Christmas quite a bit. You know, which is fine. But I got emotional as fuck, man. I wasn't faking any of that. Every time I talked to other family members, kids, gifts, whatever, that was legit. Tearing up and all. First thing in the morning, who knows why that may have happened. I'm not going to speculate on that. It just is as it is, as they say. But, so, the last part I want to, it's a part that Birch brought up, and I think it's worth repeating, even though, you know, Birch already did a pretty good job explaining it. But it's the part about celebrating both. So, in witchcraft and other religions, or spiritualities, more like it, we have 8 holidays. So 2 are the equinoxes, 2 are the solstices, and then it's the other ones like Samhain, like, well, not Yule, but, you know, May Day, the Maypole, and all that shit. All these different holidays. Alright, so those are the other 4, and then we have those are the high ones, and then the equinox and solstices are they're not low, but you know what I mean. They're just like, it's the sun, you know, like the moon we celebrate every month. Well, the sun, those are the solar ones, because, you know, it's not so obvious. The moon isn't so obvious of what it rules over versus, you know, the sun is very obvious that, you know, I'm not saying we wouldn't die without the moon. I mean, I'm sure we would. I'm just saying it's not as obvious. Anyways, point of all that is, so God dies, right? If you're celebrating just the solstice, you're celebrating the death of God, as what Birch said. In his words, that's exactly what he said, okay? And by celebrating on the 25th, they got that part right. So it's like, God dies, God is born, okay? So if you want a way around the Christianity part. Like, well, I don't want to celebrate Christmas because I don't want to look like I'm celebrating the birth of Christ. You don't have to, okay? You're celebrating the birth of the fucking sun, all right? And that's what, that's what the secret is of Christianity and why it's a witchcraft, basically. It's just because they decided to focus on a man called Jesus Christ and give it a straight up personification, like we did with Zeus, like we did with Apollo. It's not the same as Zeus, but Apollo was the sun, Mithra was the sun, Ra, all these different solar deities, okay? They're all, well, Jesus being born, or Christ, is, in that context, is the representation of the sun. The sun dies on the 21st, on the equinox. Not equinox, I keep saying that. On the solstice, on the winter solstice, sun dies, And then that's the winter solstice, and then the summer solstice is whenever it's like in full bloom, right? That's in Leo, whatever the case is, when it's the hottest. But so you're celebrating its death. So the way to get around it is, I'm not celebrating the Son of God or the Son Jesus Christ. I'm celebrating the birth of the fucking sun. Xmas, if you want. That's what Birch tells you to do, is call it Xmas. We call it Christ this, because for him it's not about Christ. For him, he's going to partake in it because, other kids can have gifts on Christmas, and it would be fair to just take the out and not have to pay for your kids' gifts on Christmas, and, we can slowly change it into, it's the sun dies, the sun comes back to life 3 days later. And when, like I said, I think I said this previously, that gets celebrated on Easter around that equinox, which, is like 3 months later, but nonetheless, that's because that's when it starts to get warmer, right? It's after spring. The spring, I think, technically starts the 21st of March, so it's always after that point, Easter. Very seldomly is on that day, but depending on where the full moon lands, and anyways, I already explained all that. But so that's how they separated it, and it made it more. I'm not saying this is what they did on purpose, but this way it makes it more look like a real man, okay, than just being astrological. Because to say the sun dies on the 21st or the 22nd, and then on the 25th it's back alive, or the 21st and the 24th, right? Christmas. That's why we have Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. It's a two-part holiday: New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Well, the sun dies, the sun comes back to life. Okay. Celebrated right then and there, and then around the equinox, Easter. You can hide your witch days in the Christian calendar, in the Christian holidays, because the Christian holidays are based on pagan fucking deities. Okay, that's the best I can say it, and it's not for me. This is not me trying to say I want to keep Christian programming, so I'm just going to change all the Christian holidays to pagan holidays. It's like, no, I'm not doing that at all. In fact, that's not the point of what I'm trying to say. It kind of is. The point of this is kind of to tell you that, Christianity has adopted a lot of paganism, and if you slightly twist your perspective on that book and decide to make up your own doctrine and your own beliefs about it, you can technically, don't say you're a Christian, because you're not a Christian. If you're taking just the Christian holidays and still celebrating them, but celebrating technically a different deity or a different spiritual whatever event, then you're not a Christian. But you can still blend in with society and still feel okay about celebrating these holidays. But instead of doing it because someone else tells you to, or not doing it because you're opposed to them, like, I'm not going to celebrate that because I'm against Christianity, or, well, I don't want my family to hate me, so I'm going to celebrate it. I'm saying you don't do either one of those. You figure out why you want to celebrate that holiday, and you attach your own specific meaning to that fucking holiday. Alright? That's what I'm saying. And that's what you can say, oh, that's just a cop-out all you want. But I've always been about personal responsibility, more so now than ever. But the first thing I say is, I think everyone needs to carve their own spirituality. Alright? Until you are clear on exactly how you want your spirituality to be, then you need to go with the norm. So, because technically you have a different religion that doesn't have holidays, well, then you're not going to get time off of work. So it kind of works in your favor to have these holidays still work for you. And if someone asks you, hey, what are you doing for the holidays? You get together with family, blah, 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 blah. You don't have to get that condensation, and that's condemnation, I guess. Them being, well, you think you're a witch, like that's a real thing, or you're of the devil, or all that bullshit. You can sidestep all that crap and just be vague and say, yeah, I celebrate the holidays. Simple as that. But what you're really doing is figuring out why these things are important to you, like I just did. So Christmas, the celebration of Christmas, or Xmas rather, for me, is about celebrating the divine spark that's within us, that's within every human being. We do that by giving gifts, sometimes to people we don't know, Secret Santa's at work. All these things are symbolic representations of recognizing that even if somebody you don't like, they have a piece of God within them. And you say that sounds like the Catholic doctrine a little bit, you know, love thy enemy, you know, and yeah, they got that shit from paganism. So it doesn't matter what you fucking say. I'm just going to keep throwing that in your face if you want to say you're just being a Christian. It's like, no, I'm not a fucking Christian. I believe in what I believe. I'm ceremonial fucking witchcraft is what I am. And ceremonial witchcraft says I can make whatever fucking holidays up I fucking want. I'm going to use the witchcraft high holy days and the equinoxes and the solstices. I'm going to incorporate those with the Christian holidays. And if I want to, I'll throw in some fucking Judaism, some Muslim, some fucking Buddhism, just for the shits and giggles. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. I mean that in the most respectful way possible. That every fucking spiritual system out there has some fucking, has some importance and relevance and a piece of God within their own fucking thing. Because they're all divinely inspired. Just like every one of those messiahs, like Zeitgeist said, you know, we can't pass judgment on to the Christians for doing what all those other religions did. You know, because if you look at the timeline of some of them are just right after, and they're right around the same areas. So really, all the other ones did the same fucking thing, but we're only picking on the Christians because the Christians have taken over and killed people in the name of God and switched the whole story around. So I get it. Trust me, I fucking get it. They deserve what's coming to them, but technically the ones that did all the killing are long dead. So fighting these new Christians that have no fucking idea that their shit stems from paganism is just falling on deaf ears and blind eyes, and you know, somebody who doesn't have the eyes and ears to fucking see and hear. So it's really irrelevant. So their best bet is to fuck all that outside bullshit you can't change, but what you can do is change within you. And this is from right out of Greater Xavier's mouth. If you use Old Testament or New Testament or religious stuff that you have programming to, but you may not have to remove that program completely. Because here's what happens. Your subconscious gets programmed, your unconscious gets programmed, whichever one you want to call it, okay? Gets programmed. On a conscious level, you can believe, you don't believe in Christianity, but if you don't actively get in your subconscious or get someone else to do it for you and remove your programming through repetition, habit, magic, whatever you want to call it, or, well, they're not all the same, those are all different ways. But if you don't go in there and remove that, which can be pretty brutal sometimes, well then, maybe you can just consciously believe something, still use your subconscious beliefs in the same way, but you consciously know that it's not for the same reasons. But to your subconscious that's already programmed, well, it doesn't really matter if you're not really changing the holiday and the significance behind it. You know, changing Jesus Christ or the Son of God to simply just the Son, S-U-N, isn't that big of a fucking difference. You're celebrating the planetary energy that gives fucking light. You're celebrating that sun energy that's within yourself. Alright? Every one of these planets should have a fucking birthday. And we should celebrate every single one of them. So if the sun, technically birthday, is December 25th, or that's just a symbolic representation we want to give it, well then fuck it. That's the day we celebrate the sun within us, above us, below us, outside of us, within us, everywhere it fucking is, everywhere it exists. And then you should do that for every fucking planet to have true balance. And that's what I fucking do. So we have a whole lot of holidays, and if you want to attribute every one of those planets to every one of these fucking holidays, well, by all means, you've got my fucking permission. But and that would be more balanced, because you're doing a symbolic representation to show that part of you that you honor it, you love it, and that you know it's there, and you have nothing but gratitude and respect for everything it's done for you. And maybe this can start the communication between you and these energies within your body, and then you can maybe start being able to communicate with it and be able to give it instructions and so on and so forth. beginning of magic. This is why we do this shit in magic. This is why we learn the tree of life, all the sephiroths that have the planetary correspondences. This is why we learn the chakra system that have the planetary correspondences. This is why these things put us in balance, because we're dealing with these things. Not just one, the sun, or Jesus, Jupiter, not just those two, sometimes Mary, Isis, that Venus-Moon hybrid, that's not balanced at all. The balanced thing to do is to figure out how you can celebrate each one of these things. And, you don't even have to do it like one day a year if you don't want to. You can do it like I do every day of the fucking week. You honor these energies in your body by giving it a candle and then asking a request. And if you don't want to ask a request every single day because you think that's pushing it, well, then you just say you're grateful for everything that fucking thing has already done for you. That energy is done for you. And by there, you're showing enough gratitude. You're showing enough dedication and devotion to these things within you that actually control everything from your healing to your poverty or your riches or your physical, your sex life, your physical abilities, your passion, your dedication, your emotional state, your mental state. All these things are ruled by these forces. So if you do stuff like the parade ritual of the hexagram, that reduces these forces on you, but at the same time you show these forces fucking respect, well then it's no bueno. You're on top of the game. You're going to win on every front. That's what ceremonial witchcraft is. That's what I fucking do. I pay respect to these fucking energies. Whether you want to think of them as deities or planets, doesn't fucking matter, as long as you realize that they're within you, they're part of you, yet they're not only exclusive to you, they're within everybody else. So this whole Xmas thing is a way to pay respect to the sun that's within everybody. Because I pay respect to the sun that's within me every fucking Sunday. Just like I pay respect to the Jupiter that's within me every Thursday. And I don't have to do it on Easter, like when Jupiter dies and comes back to life, which is Jesus, right? And I'm not saying that's what that is, has anything to do with Jupiter or anything like that. It really much resembles the sun. It's like celebrating the sun twice in one fucking year. Or one at the end of the year, one at the beginning of the year. You know what I mean? Kind of like, the solstice. What is sol? Sol, soleil, sun. It all comes from the fucking same word. So the two solstices have to do with the sun or the lack of sun, basically, right? Anyways, but all that's to say is Xmas and any other holiday that you can start paying respects to these energies that are within everybody. When I said everybody has a piece of the light, and children are more innocent than us because they haven't had time to do evil acts and deeds onto other people and create as many bad thought forms and shit that we have that are going to go out there and affect more and more people, and then we're going to blame it on some evil cabal when it's really just us doing it. Well, I wasn't just saying that. I mean, I literally mean that solar plexus on every fucking person in the world has that sun in them. And you're honoring that. You're respecting that. You're symbolically giving gifts to people, donating, being merry, cheerful, trying to be happier to everyone, every stranger, holding doors, giving candy canes, going to parades, putting on lights on your house because you're celebrating the light within everybody. It's the darkest time of the year, so we put lights on our house so that when it's dark, there's fucking light. This is symbolic. This symbolism. And I know it's ruled by the Roman Catholic Church, and it's ruled by the commercialism of stores and greed and money and all that, but in the same sense, if we're going to do it anyways, why not turn it into symbolic shit that you can use to communicate with yourself and use as a symbolic ritual to fucking get stuff or banish stuff? It just makes sense to me. And that's, I guess, where I'm going to end this shit. Sorry if I got really emotional and I sound like whatever, a crying, blubbering baby or whatever, but, thinking about your family at Christmas time, releasing some emotional blockages that I clearly had about, because I try not to mourn death, but in the same sense, I miss my fucking relatives, especially this time of year when I have all these memories bombarding my head of the times we spent together. So I'd like to celebrate the life that was within them, that they passed on to me, that I can pass on to my kids. My ancestors are going to be there with me at Christmas time, not just sound when they're there, but, sound when they're really more present. But, just look at the symbolism and give it a new perspective. Don't claim it as Christian bullshit. Claim it as your own version of spiritual. All the Christmas lights I got in my house have to do with my religion. my spirituality. They have nothing to do with Christ. Unless I'm talking about the Christ energy that's within me, if you want to say that. I don't like saying that because I know it's kind of a buzzword, you know. But it's ceremonial magic. A lot of the ceremonial magic comes down to trying to become that Christ level of mastery. It's a level of mastery. So technically I do, because I do ceremonial magic, so I kind of have to honor that word. So it's one of these things that kind of suited me well when I started it. And people can shit on it all they want. I don't give two flying fucks. I'm going to do what works for me. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I got a Mind and Magic thing in the top mailbox. Check it out. It's probably going to be good. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great fucking day. I know it's kind of early to be talking about the holidays, but you know, if you're having hard times, do some fucking magic, man. Make a sigil. Just start. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work until the new year. You get money the new year anyways. Even worse, it doesn't happen till like next spring. But either way, if you make a sigil now, whether it comes in before Christmas or not, it's gonna come in. So do the sigil, man. Just do it. Just fucking start your magical fucking journey, man. Turn off all the bullshit and start practicing fucking magic, whichever way you think is the best or coolest or whatever the case is. Just fucking start. It's the best thing you'll ever do. Alright? Thanks for listening. Thank you for the new subscribers. I think I'm at 54, which is fucking sick, man. Like, I love it, man. I'm getting more and more subscribers. People might think 54 is low, but to me, it's like, man, 54 people felt the need to actually subscribe to my stuff. Like, that is so fucking honoring that I'm getting tears again in my eyes. And I'm blessed. I consider myself blessed. So I thank every and each and every one of you for doing that. If there's ever anything I can do, shoot me a fucking email or a comment, and I'll do my best to deliver. I really do fucking appreciate it. Anyways, la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly. The Yuletide Carol. They actually say Yule in that song, by the way. Anyways, you heard all that from Birch. I gotta go. I keep wanting to talk, but I gotta shut this off sometime. You can't even see me. Anyways, thank you. Have a great fucking night.